Alright everybody, this is chapter 1 out of the Photoshop book, but it's the second lesson that we're doing in this class. So first thing I want you to do actually is, you should have Photoshop open, but open it if it's not. And I want you to browse to the shared drive like you usually do. And I want you to drag that PS01 lesson folder onto your desktop. It's going to save you some time as we go along. You can close that, you don't need that anymore. Go back to Photoshop. And then we're going to go to the file, browse in MiniBridge. I really like MiniBridge anytime you've got a couple of photos or documents that you're going to be working with. Ooh, super. Okay, so sometimes you'll get a message up here that says Launch Bridge. If you get that, just click it and you'll get to Bridge. So we are going to go to Favorites, and you should see Desktop as an option. And then you should see that PS01 Lessons. So you double click it, and there you go. That's what you should have. I took out the Done file, but I will show it to you now. Let me go back to the desktop so you don't need to do this actual step. Whoops. I just want to show it to you. There you go. And in 15 minutes. Okay, just kidding. Alright, so that's the Done folder or document, and I'll just leave that up so you guys can see it. I took it out of your folder that I put in the share drive because it just seems to cause confusion. So I don't want anyone to accidentally submit the Done document to me. So you'll notice there's a whole bunch of layers over here, and remember Photoshop is really big on layers. You need to know what you're doing with the layers in order to fully understand Photoshop. Okay, so hopefully everybody has this document, so you can go ahead and open that up. It's the PS0101 document, and you're going to just hit Save As _ work. Do not ever put any special characters other than an underscore in your file name, or it will be ruined. I've had people in the past try and put periods in their document, and it just totally messes it up, so don't do that. You really should get an error message from Photoshop that says don't do this, but it doesn't work that way. So just double check that it's a PSD file type, which it should be. And you should put it in your documents. Don't save it to the desktop. You might not be on the same computer the next time. Somebody could delete it. It's just not safe. So put it in your documents. I'm not actually going to save this, so I'm not going to do that. But you need to save it for yourselves. Okay, so we are going to first make our copy of the background, and you click and drag down to the Create New Layer icon on your Layers panel, and you turn the visibility off of your original background, and it should be locked. Should be a little padlock. A little bit different spot than in Illustrator, but same idea. And we're going to be working on the background copy layer. So this way we don't accidentally mess with the actual pixels that belong to the background. So if this were like a painting or something like that, the idea here is that you would make a copy of that painting, work on that copy, and so you're not actually destroying the original painting that you could never get back. I know it's a photograph and it's not the same idea because there's not as much work that went into it, but I bet an awful lot of work went into this photo right here, to be honest. But if you think of like layering up like clear transparencies over your painting or photograph or whatnot, so you could always remove one of those transparencies if you didn't like it, or you could just play around and not destroy anything. So it's just something you have to do. If nothing else, just do it because I say so. Okay, so now you're going to select the rectangle tool, and the rectangle tool is found in the vector shape area of the tool panel. Rectangle tool, it's usually the default. I was messing around with the custom shape tool, so that's why it looked different. So it should just look like a rectangle. Don't get it mixed up with this one. That's the gradient tool. Don't click that one. Alright, rectangle tool. In Photoshop, your default colors are black and white, just like in Illustrator, but they just have different names. So the black is the foreground color, the white is the background color, and you can change them easily with the little double arrow, or you can select it and change the color there. But anyway, you just want to be on the default. If it's not on the default, hit the letter D on the keyboard and you'll get back to your default colors. So we're going to click and drag a rectangle like so, and you're like, wow, that looks terrible. We'll fix it up and so it looks nice. At the moment, it's just a black rectangle that covers up half of your photo. We are going to change the fill color here, not to a solid color, but to a pattern, and that icon is the diagonal line thing. And we're going to change the pattern to one that is called gray granite. So if you hover over these, it's this guy, the gray granite. You can create your own patterns in here. There's more that you can do with that, but for now, you can just click anywhere up here and it will close up that panel for you. Okay, and now we're going to switch to the custom shape tool. And we're going to add in that large snowflake that you see in the background of that image down there. So you're going to go to your shape options over here, and yours will probably look like this when you first get into it. And you are going to click on the nature option here, and I want you to hit the word append, which means add to what's already there. I don't know why they couldn't just say add to. If you just hit OK, it would replace, see the word replace, current shapes with the shapes from nature. No, I want to add to the current shapes so that I don't take those away, but just add to it. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here, as you probably saw, worth your time to check out if you've got a minute, just like symbols in Illustrator. Okay, so it says to select Snowflake 1, and you just hover over them until you find it. You should at least get close, just because you know what a snowflake looks like, so it's got to be one of those three. And let's see, you are just going to do one more step. We want to come in here and say subtract front shape. So it's going to subtract from the shape that we currently have. And you want to hold down the Alt key as you click and drag sort of from the edge of that rectangle. Holding down the Alt key starts your selection from the center. So if I release Alt and then my mouse, I just messed it up because it changed where I started my selection to the corner. So I'm going to hit Control Z and do that again. Hold down Alt, make my selection, release the mouse, and then Alt, and that will prevent you from making any mistakes. It's the same as if like you were holding down Shift or any other modifier key. You release the mouse and then the modifier key. Okay, then you're going to select the path selection tool, which is this guy down here. Just like in Illustrator, it will select the path, or like if you created it with a pen tool or something like that, it would isolate it from like selecting the whole layer, which is what Photoshop really wants to do. There's also under here the direct selection tool, so that you could mess with nothing, I guess. Well, if this was the pen tool, if those were adjustable anchors, you could adjust the individual anchors. So never mind. Alright, so we are going to add a mask to this layer. Masks are really important in Photoshop. Again, if you go with the idea that we're dealing with transparencies on top of our artwork, then a mask allows you to control the transparency of the things on that layer. You have this option here, opacity, where you can control a layer, but there might be more than one thing on that layer, and you might only want to adjust the transparency of something and not everything. So that's where masks are helpful. Anytime you're blending two photos together, you're going to use a mask, so it is important. It looks like a rectangle with a hole in the middle, and it didn't do anything to the actual document. It just added this little white thumbnail over here, which is our mask. Okay, then we are going to select the gradient over here, and you're going to click and drag somewhere centrally located, probably from the right side to the left, and release. Okay, so our gradient went from white to black, and you can see our little thumbnail here. It's white on the right edge and it fades into black. So when you're dealing with masks, I don't know who came up with this system. It doesn't seem entirely intuitive to me, but if you use white, so let me just switch over to like a brush. Just a normal brush that's not gigantic. Okay, so my foreground color is white right now, so I am using white to paint. Okay, so white is making the opacity of the mask, it's bringing it back to 100%. If I use black and I paint with it, it's removing the opacity. This might be over your head right now. That's okay. It'll come in handy later on. So, window, history, I always like to have this open. You probably should start getting in the habit of doing that. So I like to put it in between my adjustment layer and adjustment panel and layers panel. And then I like to be able to see what I'm doing as I go. So you'll probably find that more helpful, but it's up to you. So I'm just going to click back, because remember, you only get one time to use Control Z, and then you have to use Alt Control Z to step backwards. But if you've got the history panel open, it's much more helpful because you can just click back to where you need to be. Okay, so we've got the gradient going. You could, redo it, do it again if you didn't like what you had, but it just needs to look something kind of like that. Okay, so now we're going to play around with brushes. So on your background copy layer, you're going to hold down Alt and come down and select the Create New Layer icon. And by holding down Alt, it pops up with this menu so that you can change the name of it right away. and we're going to call it strokes and hit OK. So now you have 3 copies of the background. Again, the background, there's no visibility on that, so we're not doing anything there. And we're going to add some sort of snow looking stuff coming off the back of the skis. So we're going to go to the brush tool, which I'm already on, and open up the brush panel, and we need to find the one called airbrush. So if you hover over these, erodible. Okay, so the erodible is new in CS6. I was reading up on it a little bit, and it says that it allows you to, it's very much like a piece of chalk. So if you click on one of these, doesn't look that chalk-like to me, but whatever. You can see the preview of what the brush stroke might look like if you use that particular brush tip. So we're trying to find the one that's airbrush 80. That's it. Yes. Okay. So your settings are probably going to be all over the place. If you pull out the spacing, then you get some weird things. Let's see. Granularity. Usually it's down there. It doesn't really matter. So you can just play around, blah, la, la, la. So, isn't that fun? And just undo it if you don't want to keep it, because you probably don't. We're going to, so you can feel free to experiment at this point, play around with the different brush tips, whatever, I don't care. But eventually, we're going to set the settings over here to, the hardness should be 5%, distortion is at 0, granularity at 45, which is like the separations of the particles. Spatter size is 15, spatter amount is 50, and the spacing is 25. So it kind of looks like glittery, glistening snow. So that's the idea. I don't need that taking up that much space. I'm just going to minimize that panel. The flow normally is at 100%. For this, you're going to put it at 25%. So the flow is like if you were using a can of spray paint. It would be how fast the paint was coming out. So the flow. So if you don't want it to come out very fast, then you turn it down. And if you want it to come out super fast, then you turn it all the way up. So you need to have white as your foreground color. The easiest way to do that is to hit X on your keyboard, and that switches from black to white. If it was already white, then just leave it. And so what you're going to do here is make it look like snow is kind of coming off the back of the skier. Something like that. Feel free to be creative and experiment how you want to do that. Just don't go crazy. It's supposed to look pretty realistic, so don't like do silly stuff. Okay, so moving on. You should probably do a quick save at this point just to save what you've got going. Alright, so we're going to switch back to the rectangle layer and the custom shape tool. And we're going to select a different snowflake. Here we go, here's our snowflakes. We're going to select snowflake 3. And you're just going to single click anywhere. And for the width will be 60 and the height will also be 60. And hit OK. Alright, so now I've got a little snowflake here that's 60 by 60. And then we are going to change the fill color right now is that granite pattern. So we're going to change it to the 50% gray. No, just kidding. The fill is none. The stroke is 50% gray. And the size of the stroke is 2. Okay. Yeah. And one more thing we're going to change is the stroke. Let's see. More options. So we are going to change the alignment to center, the caps to round, and the corners to round. Click dash line. And then you're going to change dash, gap, they'll both be 2, and then one more time, dash, gap to 2. Hit OK. No. Don't hit OK. Hit save. Yes, I've already done this once, so it's not letting me save it. So you would hit save before you hit OK. Okay, but I already had it in there, so it wouldn't let me save it again. And click anywhere up here, and you can see if you need to zoom in to that, you can. So it's a dashed stroke. Alright, so now we're going to select the Move tool. The Move tool is the top icon on your tool panel. And you're going to hold down Alt and clone your snowflake a couple of times. Actually, that was one too many. So I'm going to just delete that layer. So I should have, it should have created a new layer each time I did that. So I should have my top one called Shape 1 Copy 3. If you have more than that, you need to get rid of them. If you don't have enough, copy one or more again. So at the moment, we don't exactly know where to put those. So you can just put them wherever you want. And we'll get to it in a second. Alright, so we need to merge these layers together. All these different shapes. They don't need to be on their own layer, and it's just kind of taking up space. So hold down Shift and select Shape 1. And so that selects everything in between. So I should have my top one selected already. I held down Shift, selected Shape 1, and it selects all those layers together. The keyboard command for this is Control E as an elephant, and it merged all those layers together. I could have gone up to Layer, Merge Layers as well, but that's faster. So now those are all on one layer, but I can still move them around. So I can still, they're still adjustable on their own. So I didn't ruin anything by doing that. Let's see. View, I think if we go target path, there, okay. So it looked like my colors were all goofy, but I just turned off like the selection that was going on around my snowflake. And so now I have 4 snowflakes, and you can see that it's a dashed line that's creating those snowflakes, so it makes it look more realistic. I don't know, it's just what the book said to do. Alright, so now we're going to add some text, and your text file is already in there. Let's see, so we're just going to open this that says PSO 102. Okay, so now you can see that there's text on a transparent background. Anytime you see this checkerboard, this gray and white checkerboard, that means it's completely see-through. It's just, how do you show something is see-through if it's see-through? So Photoshop uses this checkerboard. And you'll see over here that there's 2 layers, so each line of this text is on its own layer, which is usually pretty helpful. So we're going to right-click here and go to Duplicate Layers. So we're duplicating those layers, and we want to put them onto, yours should say PS0101_work. That should be the one that you put it to. Hit OK, go over to my document, and they are on that document now, which is great. And now we need to select the type tool, and you're going to select anywhere up in this pure section. You can do Control A, which selects all, anything on that layer, and the only thing on this layer is the pure, the word pure, so we're good. You're going to change the style of the font, so leave the font itself at Myriad Pro. Change the style to bold. And then here's a helpful tip, a little shortcut. If you hold down Alt and use the arrow keys, like if I go to the left, it shrinks the space in between. If I go to the right, it increases the space in between. So that's helpful. Kind of want it nice and tight there, but there's no real set way that it needs to be. Just do what you think looks right. And then we're going to go up and open paragraph styles. You guys all loved this so much. Why not do it again? Just kidding. Okay, so open, or not open, but create a new paragraph style. And double click it, and we're going to call it headline. And hit OK. Okay, and then we're going to change the powder. We're going to select the headline again, and you'll notice the little plus sign came up, and on Photoshop, clear override. So we just overrode the override, I think. But bottom line is there shouldn't be a little plus sign there. Okay, so now we are going to hit the check mark or enter, either way, and it applied the same edits we did to that to the word powder. Okay, so now we're gonna change the color of the text, and because we're changing the style, the paragraph style, and not the layer or the text itself, we can make the change and it will apply it to both, or really any area where we've applied that style, which is why paragraph styles are so helpful. So what's really convenient here is you'll notice that when I'm trying to choose a color, I've just got a circle as my cursor, but when I come into my document, it changes into an eyedropper. And so it's sampling the document itself. So if I selected his jacket, it would make a color that matched whatever's in my document, which is great. Especially if you have a color that you really like and you have no idea how you got it or where it came from. So you want to try and find a light gray. So wherever in your document you can see a light gray, go ahead and choose it. Hit OK and OK. And it changed both words to that light gray, the same color. Alright, well, that is pretty much all we're going to do here. Except, I forgot one thing, really important thing, actually. Go back to your Shape 1 Copy 3 layer, and you want to move your snowflakes around so that they're not all bunched up or whatever. And each one of these you want to change the size of a little bit. You don't want them all four to be the same size. That's boring. So Control T, as in transform, that's what it stands for, is one of your most helpful commands. And I really am going to require you to know the keyboard shortcut for that, Control T, because you just use it way too often to not know this. So Control T stands for free transform, so I can change sizes of things. I can come out here and hover and rotate. I can even flip something, like if I want to just flip it that way. So again, holding down Shift is always good because it keeps the proportions accurate, but I really don't care so much about this particular document, the little snowflakes. If they're a little bit different, that's all good. So when you're using Control T, you either have to hit Enter or Escape. Escape is cancel, Enter is I'm committing to that move. Or you can hit the cancel up here or the commit check mark up here. So either way, I just like to use the keyboard. So then you can move this guy around, maybe make it a little smaller, rotate slightly, and either enter or commit. So skipped over this step earlier. Whoa. If I were to, you saw what I just did there. I moved my little, looks like kind of a compass type thing. So this is the center point if I were to rotate, so it would rotate around that point. So that throws a lot of people off. And I can't do anything unless I escape or commit. Try it again. Alright, so hopefully yours is looking better than mine. Alright, and that is all we're going to do here. So save, make sure it's a PSD, and submit to Schoology. Alright, so there's just one more little thing I wanted to talk about in this lesson. And so you need to open an Illustrator. And you probably noticed that PureSki logo down there, and that's an Illustrator file type. Adobe products talk to each other pretty well, so I'll show you how they talk to each other, I suppose. So you want to open that in Illustrator. Hopefully this doesn't take 800 years. PureSki logo. It should be an Illustrator file type. Open. Alright, so you're just going to hit Control A to select all. And then we're going to copy. So Control C, or so you can see what I'm doing, edit copy. Okay, and then you're going to go back to your Photoshop file. Maybe. There we go. And you're just going to go edit, paste, and shape layer. Can move that around. So put that on there somewhere. You can change the color of the text, you can change the size of it, whatever you think needs to happen. So put that in there somewhere, and then submit the whole file to Schoology. Alright, thanks.